we forget that we can't control another person. We really kind of think we can and we should, and we have that right to control our kids and we do it through consequences and rewards and all of that kind of stuff. But our kids have to choose us. Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andy Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. So fun to have you. I'm really excited what we're going to be talking about today and Tuesday and Wednesday. We're actually releasing 4 episodes this week. I've never done that before. But when I was planning out what I wanted to share, the 3 Vital Decisions workshop just had to be shared this week. So I'm going to share them back to back, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Each will be one of the vital decisions. Thursday, we'll do the normal book club where I read you a chapter of my book. And the reason I want to share these with you back to back is that's how I delivered them live the first go round. So I think that's the most powerful way. That's how I intended for them to be presented. So I wanted to stay true to that. The other reason is because they build on each other, and I don't want to lose that momentum by making you wait a week before the next one's launched. So today is going to be the first decision. I so want to tell you, but I'm going to let you wait and listen to the episode and be listening for very practical steps that I'm going to challenge you to do in real life with your kids. Knowing is not enough. We have to be doing. So in this workshop, I was very clear that I wanted to teach and then I wanted to call people to action. So don't just listen to these episodes, listen to them, and then take me up on the challenge. If you want to really have fun, you can pop over. I think in YouTube, you can leave comments under each episode. So I'll try to do my due diligence and go check those this week. But go leave a comment if you want. Let me know how it went for you. You can also email me. I'd love to hear that. Andy at connectmethodparenting.com. That would be fun. But take action on the things that I'm telling you, on those practical steps that I'm going to challenge you to do. All right, let's dive in to the first vital decision. Hey, everybody. Welcome to day 1 of the Connect Method Parenting Workshop. I am so excited. While everyone's joining, I'm going to give you a rundown of what we're going to go over for the next 3 days and what to expect. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about me, and we're going to just dive right into it. So over the next 3 days, we're going to cover 3 vital decisions that you need to make so that you can feel connected to your kids and confident with your parenting. So confident with your parenting that nothing your kids can do can shake you. And that was huge for me. That was what I was totally off my rocker about when I had all of my little kiddos. And I'm going to go more into that in a minute. But we're going to talk about what you're doing now that's keeping you from creating those dreamy relationships with your kids and that confidence and that ability to respond with connection no matter what. And like I said, these 3 vital decisions that we need to make, where we need to be spending our time, what we want to be doing so that we can really enjoy parenting and feel like you know what to do when your kids are having a meltdown. If you have teenagers like me, when they're refusing to listen to you, although toddlers refuse to listen to us too, right? Or if you feel like they're being difficult, and what to do and focus on to proactively connect when things are going great and when things are going not great, right? So we can cover all of our bases. So that's kind of what we're going to be covering. And we're going to be meeting each day for about 1 hour for the next 3 days. I'm so excited. And at the end of each time we meet, we're going to have a little assignment for you to complete that afternoon. So it's going to be so amazing. And what I really would encourage you to do is every day, I want you to think about the results you want for you. I want you to come to this workshop thinking about your specific children, the things you're struggling with, and what would you love to create or to have a little bit of movement or awareness around for you to feel like it was successful. Because, I know we're busy. I'm a mom and I know it's busy, and to commit to an hour is significant. And I honor that and I respect that. And I'm grateful that you're here because I know that over the next 3 days, you can really create something magnificent. So some of the things that might come up is to bring more love instead of fixing energy when your kids have off-track behavior. These are things that moms have told me in the past, just to get the wheels going. To intentionally set the tone you want for your home, not waiting for your kids to be, or your partner to feel better or to act better for you to change. Changing the way that you see behavior so that you don't get triggered when the meltdown happens or when the pushback happens or when you your teenager says something rude to you. I want you to just envision this coming year as the year you become a calm, connected mom, the calm, connected mom you've been dreaming of. And I want you to think about the possibility of creating those amazing relationships you want with your kids, to be able to respond, maybe to heal a relationship that's a little bit prickly right now. I want you to think about enjoying your kids and enjoying your parenting like you've never done before. So just have that in your mind. I want you to have that vision as we start. And specifically today, we're going to focus on one thing. I call it the first decision. And like I said, at the end, I'm going to give you some homework and it's going to be amazing. So really quickly, for those new to me, I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I'm going to give you a little introduction about me and why it even matters to you. And everyone's still joining, so I'm just going to dive into this right now. My name is Andy Martineau. I'm a certified life coach with a life coach school. I'm an integrative coach, a yoga instructor, a teacher, a Connect Method parenting coach, a registered nurse, and I'm also a mom of 6. And I'm a reformed yeller, a recovering perfectionist, a control freak, turned Connect Method parenting coach. So I love, love, love helping amazing moms switch from corrective to connective parenting. And I'm not here because I'm a perfect mom. No, I'm not even close. I seriously learn new things every day. I love that parenting gives us so much opportunity for growth. I say it's the best self-help course we could possibly enroll in. But I'm here because after leaving my job as a nurse to be a full-time mom, which was my dream, by the way, I kind of felt like my life fell apart. I was yelling. I was out of control, upset, frustrated, hopeless. I remember crying myself to sleep most nights, feeling like I was dying inside because of how terrible things were going. You know, I had a couple of kids by now, and I had my kids fairly quickly. I had 6 kids in 8 years. That's a lot of kids in 8 years. And I was trying every parenting trick. I was asking for help. Things were not getting better. I would look at women. This is when I knew it got really bad. I was looking at women who had no kids, and I was jealous. And I felt like maybe I'd made a really huge mistake. Maybe I wasn't cut out to be a mom. At night, once the kids fell asleep, I felt so guilty for feeling like this was the best part of my day. Like it was the best part of my day when my kids weren't around. And that just made me feel like I was even just more terrible, like the worst mom ever. I felt so much shame. And the crazy thing is I had this other dialogue going, like, I'm a smart cookie and I can't make this work. I'd ask myself, what's wrong with me? Why can't I get this? What am I missing? Why am I so bad at this? It felt like that movie Groundhog's Day. I don't know how old you guys all are, but that was a movie I watched when I was growing up. And it was like that every day, minus all the fun he had once he realized he had nothing to lose, because I felt like every day I had everything to lose. For me, there was no relief. There was very little fun. I mean, it had brief moments where things, felt like they were getting better. But for the most part, it felt like there was this hum of frustration and failure. And I took being a mom very, very seriously. There was no room for error in my mind. I was a perfectionist. I wanted to get it right. I wanted to do, good by my kids, but I was making lots and lots of errors. Can you guys relate? And I felt like that was the only thing that was happening is errors, errors, errors. And I remember thinking one night, this is how crazy my brain was and how crazy our brains are. I remember thinking one night that if Miss Schaefer, she was my beloved fourth grade teacher, was giving me a grade, she would totally have given me an F minus. Everything that mattered was on the line, but knowing that didn't stop me from yelling and getting furious. Like I knew what I wanted to create. I didn't know exactly how to do it. I thought I would try. I couldn't go from knowing to doing. I knew what I wanted and I couldn't do it. I just knew that one of these days I was going to get to the point of no return, the point where I would officially mess my kids up for good, where even good counseling couldn't help them or it would be like irreversible. And it was just this crazy loop I was in. And I just hoped, I would pray and hope and just beg to try to figure this out. I would read all the things I could read. I would go to classes, all of the things. I wanted to figure it out before I permanently scarred them, but I was stuck. I was exploding every day. And then I want to tell you something that happened, because then there was this one day of the many explosions that was happening between my kids having, their complete meltdowns and me having complete meltdowns. But there was this, and this was happening all of the time, but then there was this one day and my 4-year-old destroyed our playroom. He had found, like I said, I had 6 kids in 8 years, so there was lots of baby things all around. And he had found this huge thing of baby powder that like the Costco size, like it felt like the massive, at least that's what my memory remembers. It was like the huge one. And he had poured it everywhere, like everywhere in the playroom. We had this room, it was off the kitchen. It had a door. We called it our playroom. There was baby powder everywhere. I call it now my baby powder blizzard, or the baby powder blizzard.
He had dumped it on his younger siblings. They were white. He dumped it on an older sibling. He had dumped it into all of the electric things we had, like our electronic DVD, I think it was a DVD player. And we had just bought a GameCube, I think is what they were called at the time. Hundreds of dollars of devices were ruined. And we didn't have any money to replace any of them. And I was angry. I was so angry. I totally lost it. Not only was that room a mess, the rest of the house was a mess. The kids weren't listening. Nap time hadn't happened that day. It was a total disaster. The baby wasn't sleeping. I hadn't even made it to get groceries. I remember the laundry was piling up. So I had all of these things. My hair wasn't even brushed. It felt like everything was a fight. And no one was noticing how much I'd even been doing lately. So I was kind of just like, why am I even doing this? No one even cares. No one's helping. I couldn't take it anymore. I snapped like I had many times before, probably already done it 5 times that day. And I yelled like, what are you thinking? I can't take this anymore. And then I lectured. These are my go-to tools. I lectured, you guys should know better than this. And then I blamed them. Why do you do these things? Like when you do this, you make me angry. And then I punished them by saying like, no playing with friends for the rest of the week. And I remember this moment because it was this pivotal shift because I was in the middle of this tirade. And then I remember looking down, and I don't know why it hadn't happened the million times before this. I'd done the same kind of scenario many, many times. But for some reason in this moment, I looked down and I looked at my 4-year-old's face, and his eyes were watering and his face was showing this like significant shame, and his chin was dropped, and he like turned down, and it hit me. Something hit me, and I woke up out of my angry trance. It was this full stop moment. And I was saying to myself, what the heck am I doing? Why am I doing this? I had this pause. I got really present. I didn't know in the moment, this was not intentional, but for some reason I was given this little gift. I was paused. I saw things differently. I was talking to myself kind of in my head, like, why am I doing this? Why am I yelling? I have no idea what I'm doing. This isn't even working. I've done this 5 times today. It just doesn't work to yell. It doesn't work to lecture. It doesn't work to take everything away. I had no idea really what to do. I only had an idea of what not to do. So I paused. I didn't know how I was going to resolve anything. I didn't even know if this was a good idea, but I gave him a hug and I apologized. And I said, I'm so sorry I yelled. And I had been apologetic before, but something in my heart shifted. We laughed. I even took a picture. I have a picture of it. And then we cleaned it up, like lickety split. It took a while because it was baby powder everywhere, but it wasn't hard and heavy. And it wasn't angry cleaning. Have you angry cleaned before? I have. It felt so much better, but I couldn't trust myself to repeat the process on demand. And I wanted to. I was trying so hard, but I was slipping back. But something had shifted because I was determined to reverse engineer what had just happened. But it took forever for me to figure it out. It felt like forever. And when your kids are little, every day feels so much longer. It just took a long time. It took me years of struggling, of failing, of researching for another way to parent that didn't rely on punishment, that didn't need rewards or bribes or lectures or ultimatums as their primary thrust for the shift in behavior. And I slowly started finding it because I never went back to work as a nurse in the hospital because I became obsessed with figuring out parenting. And now I've been a mom for almost 22 years. My oldest will be 22 in October. And even though the first 7, I was a little bit lost, for the last 13, I think I did the math right. I've been researching and figuring out a way to parent using connection, using anything but punishments and words, and like trying to tap into intrinsic motivation, trying to do it in a compassionate way, but firm. Didn't want to be passive either. So it felt like my brain was like, no, there's only 2 options. You can be really loving and compassionate, but that means you're passive, or you can be really firm, but that means you're authoritative and you have to use consequences and rewards. I'm like, there's got to be something in between, right? And it didn't come quick or easy. And like I said, I messed up a lot. But eventually what is now called Connect Method Parenting came out of it. And I can confidently say that I really, really do understand connection-based parenting. I understand the science, all the brain stuff, which taps into my nursing background. Like I love all of the data and the research. And I know that it works in real life because I've done it with my 6 kids and with myself and just with relationships and what it actually looks like to transition from corrective to connective parenting. It's amazing. And now I'm on a mission to share it with any parent who's ready to create the most incredible experience for themselves and their kids. Oh, and I just have to mention that little 4-year-old I was telling you about, who's the brains behind the baby powder blizzard. He's now 17. He's amazing. And no, I didn't scar him. So if you have those thoughts going in your mind, like I'm going to scar my kids because I've messed up so much. No, it's never too late. It's never too late. So if I can figure this out and turn around my parenting, I really believe anyone can if they want to. And if they're willing to do what it takes to retrain our brains and our nervous systems and our habits, we can do this. And I'm here to celebrate you and to cheer you on and to help you see the framework that I wish had been offered to me right at that beginning, right when I wanted it and I knew I needed something else, but I didn't really know where to go. So a few years ago, I started teaching after I had some friends ask me what I was like to explain my parenting philosophy. And I don't say that to say like, and I'm, someone that is the ideal parent. I just was figuring out some things that they wanted and they saw it was working and they wanted to know how I was doing it. And I started to unpack it. And now I have shared and taught Connect Method Parenting with over 10,000 parents, which is incredible and such an honor. And I've worked very, very closely with hundreds of moms in group settings and in one-on-one settings to help them really learn how to get their kids to want to listen to them, how to handle off-track behavior with connection, how to consistently create deep, meaningful relationships with their kids, to retrain their nervous system and their brain, and to kind of reframe misbehavior and all of those things to up-level their life. And so I'm so ready to talk to you about it and to dive into the first big decision that we have to make to start ourselves to going from corrective to connective parenting. So are you ready to feel so confident with your parenting and so connected with your kids that nothing can shake you? Well, then you're in the right place. I've got the goods. That's what we're diving into. And that's what I am so passionate about. So today specifically, we're going to talk about what I call our vital decision number one. And here's what it is. I'm going to say it succinctly, and then I'm going to dive into it a lot. So the decision is that I'm going to stop energizing or giving, lots of attention and lots of my, time to off-track behavior, specifically punishments, rewards, ultimatums. We're like actually energizing that by we're giving more energy to it when we use punishments, ultimatums, and rewards. So I'm going to unpack that because your brain might be thinking, I don't know what else to do. I don't know what she means. We're going to explain that more and we're going to circle back to that at the end. And I think you're going to really have a clear understanding of what I mean and how intentional we have to get to change the way we respond to off-track behavior. So I thought we could first dive into what do you want? You want to have amazing relationships with your kids. That's what I wanted. I wanted to have amazing relationships with my kids. I wanted to feel like everything was just glorious and juicy and rich. I wanted, though, also my kids to listen better. I was tired of my kids just ignoring me feeling like I was having to say it 12 times, 15 times, 20 times, or I was a drill sergeant. So that was another list of what I wanted. So as I'm telling you kind of what my list was, or what I feel like most parents have told me that I've worked with, like this is kind of the list. Here's what I think we want. So amazing relationship, better listening. We want kids to fulfill their potential. We want to enjoy parenting more. We don't want to get frustrated when things start going off track and yell because the kids are being difficult. We want to really see and hear our kids. We want our kids to feel loved and honored. We want them to have a high self-esteem. We want them to be hard workers. We also want them to be kind and considerate and empathetic and compassionate and passionate about something, right? So we want all of these things for our kids, which I think are beautiful. And if you have any additional things, type them in. I'd love to read them off. But that's what I have found is, if I'm going to paraphrase it, those are the main things that we want. So here's the perceived problems that get in the way of those ideals that we want is our kids' behavior, not listening, not cleaning, not helping, being rude and sassy, not doing their homework, fighting with their siblings, right? So we have these like, yeah, I want to have this beautiful relationship with my kids, but they're doing all of these things that are getting in the way. That's what our brain is saying. Or we have this problem, there's something tricky with my child. They're especially difficult. They have a tendency to be rude or unkind, or they're not motivated, or they're lazy. We have this perception, this judgment about our child. Maybe we compare them to other kids that we know and we're like, oh my gosh, look at this. So that's another thing that gets in our way, a problem, right, that we see. Or we turn it on ourselves, like it's my fault. I have a lack of patience. I'm a bad mom. I can't help myself. I'm at my wit's end. I'm just not cut out for this. I totally went here too. Like he's really hard. I go from being too passive, or I'm too controlling, like I'm flipping and flopping. I'm inconsistent. I'm not very scheduled or organized, right? We start like putting this huge blame on ourselves that just makes us feel awful. So those are some of the things that we think are the problem, the reason why we're not able to achieve what we really, really wanted to achieve over the years. So here's what we think the solution is. This is what society has taught us. This is what we've inherited maybe from our ancestors, our parents, or whatever, is that we need to use consequences, rewards, ultimatums, and lectures because we think They're going to teach a lesson. If I give the right consequence, then or reward, or bribe or whatever, they'll eventually learn the lesson. And it's almost like parenting is discipline, that the essence of parenting is discipline. But I'm really going to give you a lot of opportunity to challenge that idea, to challenge that belief, because parenting isn't discipline. It's not synonymous with discipline. I think parenting is providing the environment for our child to become their full potential. And it was so interesting. On Monday, I have my calls, and one of the moms jumped on. She's amazing. She's been working with me for a while, and she was talking about cleaning up the house and getting the kids to pick up after themselves. And she said this, and it was so honest and true, and just what I think all of our brains think is, she's like, but my brain still thinks I need to teach them how to clean by taking things away or bribing them with something. And she's like, even though I know that doesn't work. And it was so funny. We laughed about it. We're like, yeah, that's the good old nervous system at play, those old beliefs that we want to keep them alive because our brain wants to keep us safe and secure. It wants to keep doing what it's been doing, despite the evidence that, like, hey, I just have to do the same. Like, I have to keep giving rewards and giving punishments or giving the bribes or having, right, all of that. Our brain, what it does, it starts filtering out the evidence that it's not working because it just wants to keep us safe, and safety is doing the same thing over and over again. So we have to really pull that up, and we have to really challenge those beliefs. We were talking more as we were coaching and working through it, and she's like, I'm getting it though. Like, I'm believing, and she's doing amazing. She's made such like huge progress, and just in her mindset and beliefs around things. And she's seeing that, like, yeah, actually, if I'm honest and I'm taking a step back, the times where it works really well, where I haven't even had to resort to that at all, my kids have just cleaned, is because of how I'm showing up and my beliefs and my mindset, all the things we're going to dive into here. So it is a struggle to disassociate, to disavow, I don't know what you want to call it, but to get rid of those old beliefs that research has totally proven that when we are using consequences and rewards and punishments and ultimatums and lectures and bribes and all those things, because we think that will inherently teach us, it's complete.
If you're new to Connect Method Parenting, I have a great way for you to get started. I created a free course that covers some of the biggest challenges parents are facing and how Connect Method Parenting solves them. In an hour, we're going to talk about why parenting is so hard, how to get your kids to want to listen to you, how to stop yelling and losing your cool, and become that calm, confident, connected parent for good. It's the fastest way to get started using connection as your go-to tool for influencing and impacting your kids. Go to cmp.works/course to get instant access today.
Not accurate. It's not working. There is limits, and all of those we're going to go into, and consequences that do happen, right, as a result of choices we make or our kids make. But we're doing it with connection. We're powering it by connection, which is a totally different experience. So it's not that we become passive. We're actually very compassionate and firm as we go through this. So like I've already kind of touched base, culturally, this is what we've been taught, this idea that it's called behavioralism or it's called learning theory. After World War II, there were two pretty prominent, and there are lots of psychologists, but two pretty prominent psychologists, Watson and B.F. Skinner, that really got this out there. But the problem is they studied with rats and pigeons and totally different mammals than humans, right? And they were able to, manipulate behavior based on external stimuli. However, we're just so much more complicated. None of those other mammals, rather, have prefrontal cortexes. They're not as developed. So it's worth challenging this idea, this culturally maybe inherited belief that rewards and consequences are the teacher. And maybe it's about connection instead. Maybe it's actually something else. So we're going to dive into that. And that's what I have found to be the case after being so frustrated with the results I was getting using the techniques that I had been taught, just inherited really from society, of consequences and rewards. I was able to see, like, oh, there's another way. So let's talk about the results we create when we do consequences and rewards and punishments and ultimatums and all of those kinds of things, because here's the truth. It can work short term. If you don't clean up your room, you can't hang out with friends tonight. That might work. If we pick the right thing to take away that they care enough about, we might be able to get a temporary win. We might be able to get the result we want short term. But the more things we take away that they love, one of two things will typically happen. they'll stop caring about those things. So they'll just kind of get really ambivalent. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. It's a protective mechanism. Or they'll just, stop caring about us. They put up the defenses, right? They don't inherently create this intrinsic drive that we're really, really wanting. So both are really not ideal solutions to use that. They're not ideal outcomes. That we can get the short-term win sometimes when we use punishments, ultimatums, bribes, all those things, but they come at a cost. So yes, this approach can work, but it has some really sneaky side effects that sometimes we don't examine. Battle of the wits, power struggles, defiance. They push even more. The more we push, the more we try to create an environment where it's, we have these rules or we're using consequences, the more they push against it, even if they would have wanted it before, right? It's especially when they get to be a teenager. Some of the other sneaky side effects are they start lying or sneaking. There's no open line of communication. There's frustration. It feels like failure and Groundhog's Day, right? So those are just some of the things I want to bring up, because sometimes our brains are so attached to our old stories. They're like, no, it has worked here, here, and here. And it's like, yeah, but at what cost? And how exhausting is that for you to have to ask over and over and over again? Maybe there's a better way. Maybe science has shown us through, some of the new things that are happening, like the neurobiology or the my brain's bright, but there's like so much in developmental psychology that's showing us that there's a way that actually works so much better. So let's tap into the new way, right? So we think that consequences and rewards will give us a long-term solution, and that is a problem. Punishments and rewards, they don't ignite intrinsic motivation. They don't instill self-confidence in them or you. And yeah, it takes so much time. In fact, sometimes I've heard people say like, well, this idea of connective parenting, I respond in a way that feels like it's going to take too much time, or I'm doing proactive connection with my kids. And that's just like so much time. But like, let's be honest, the asking your kids to brush their teeth or pick up their toys 15 times and threatening them a few times with, some punishment or something before they were finally losing it yourselves, right? And yelling at them. And now everyone's upset and still the teeth aren't brushed or the toys aren't picked up. That takes a heck of a lot of time, and that's exhausting. So guess what? A child, and I think this applies to adults too, isn't looking for a reward, a praise, or a treat. That's really not ultimately what they want. That's not the best motivation. What they're looking for is for someone who believes in them, someone who listens to them, someone who's on their team, someone who respects them and tries to understand their point of view. That's what we really want. We really want that more than we want the candy bar, more than we want, the privilege, or, if we're going from the bribe or reward side. So another actual problem that is happening. So the first one is we actually think that rewards and punishments work. They're going to create this change in our children's behavior for all the right reasons, right? That's a problem when we believe that that's a problem. Another one is that we see off-track behavior as a sign that something is wrong instead of as information. Thinking that big emotions and meltdowns and shouldn't be happening. They're signs that something's wrong with my child. They're signs that something's wrong with me. We think kids should be thinking logically way before their brains are developmentally ready. We think that kids should always be obedient. We're not giving kids to have space, have off-track days. So this interpretation of what off-track behavior is, we have a totally skewed perspective of it, instead of like, oh, this is them figuring out their, that they can't have a cookie before dinner and they have got to work through that. Like, or it's just information of what's going on inside. This is something that was really frustrating for them, or something's happened at school that's really hard for them and they're bringing it home and they're working through it. So we have this skewed point of view though, that something's wrong when they have off-track behavior. And so we address it in a way of like, fix it, or, that something's broken or whatever. So another huge thing that happens is this is a belief, is we confuse responsibility with influence. We think that because we're responsible parent, like we have the responsibility rather to be their parent, that we have the right to be listened to be influential. But I want to just say cooperation and influence isn't something we can demand. We try, right? We try to demand it through punishments and rewards, but it's actually something we earn. Nobody reminds us of this when you're like raising your child, right? We forget that we can't control another person. We really kind of think we can, and we should, and we have that right to control our kids and we do it through consequences and rewards and all of that kind of stuff. But our kids have to choose us. And one of the most incredible stories that I think showed this so much to me is when I heard a father talking about his experience with his son. And I call him like the philosopher farmer, because he was this professor, but also had a farm. And so he loved these two things. So he was very intellectual, but also very agricultural. And he had his kids working hard on the farm, and his 7-year-old had been doing really great. And then one day just shut down and pushed back and had all of this huge attitude. And he really pondered it, and he was thinking about the context that we've been talking about, this idea of how, and he had studied and just dove into so much research and literature about humans and relationships and what motivates us, and childhood and development and all of this beautiful stuff. And so he's like, I know I can't control. I need to build the relationship with him. That's my main priority right now, not to try to get him to work hard because I'm taking something away. And so he came up with a plan based on his son. And he said, the thing that I know my son will love is just the bedtime reading to him. He loves being read to. I haven't been spending the time there because I've been trying to do these other tasks that I need to get done. So I'm going to put all those things on pause for a minute, and I'm going to read to him every night until he falls asleep. And he did this consecutively. This was his one-on-one connection time that he created for him and his son. And he, obviously was intentional in other ways, but this was his main focus of like the biggest thing he was going to change was just being with his son and believing in his son and believing that nothing was wrong. It was just something, that he needed to heal the relationship. And he said it took a few weeks and then even a few months before really everything kind of went back to the way it was before. But he said, without him having to, he set firm limits, right, for his son to like still work with him. He wasn't just being passive, but he said all of a sudden something shifted and my son started to choose to come back and work with me. He wanted to, he was excited about it. And he said to me, which I think is so profound, and it just really hit me. He said, they have to choose us. We have to really believe that ultimately, if we want them to really be open to our feedback and our influence, if we want to have that kind of pull in their life for good, right, they have to choose us. And he said, this was my way to do that. He chose me because I invested in the relationship more. I tried to get into what was going on in his world. And I love that. They have to choose us. Our kids have to choose us. We don't have the inherent right for them to do that. We earn that. We do have the responsibility, but it doesn't give us the right. And that is such a huge awareness that I don't think a lot of us got. So just understanding that really can start to change things for us. Okay, so another thing is we get worried that if we're nice and loving when they make a mistake, we're going to encourage their off-track behavior. Let me say that another way. We think if we show up with connection and compassion when the kids have off-track behavior, it's actually feeding the kids' hunger for attention. So like in this dysfunctional way, we're reinforcing the behavior. But here's the truth. And I want to address this because if we don't, and I want to address all of these things, because if we don't talk about them, your brain's going to totally take you back to your old habits and beliefs. We have to start challenging, oh, this is what you have to see it. Here's what I've been thinking. Oh, is that true? There's other ways to think about it. Here's the things that I haven't considered. So a lot of moms, when they hear me talk about connection-based parenting, connect method parenting, they're like, no, that is going to encourage them. That's going to they're going to want it more. And there is a way that will happen, but I'm going to talk about it so that you don't fall into that trap. But here's the truth. The truth is that showing a child love when they make a mistake, it doesn't reinforce the mistake. It reinforces the idea that they are loved without conditions. I posted this recently on Facebook and somebody posted a comment and she said, isn't that the truth for not just kids, but adults too? When we make a mistake and someone shows us love, it's not like, oh, I should make more of those mistakes. I should be, more like that because then I get love. It's like, oh no, it's reinforcing that someone loves me even though I make mistakes. No child wants to be told how wrong they are, especially by the people they love the most. They'd rather be told by those who they love, like their mom and dad, that they'd rather be told how much they understand how hard their life is. They'd rather be validated that their emotions are real and okay. And sometimes we're mad and sometimes we get frustrated. They'd rather know that they are someone trusts in them and believes in them no matter what, even when they mess up, even when their behavior is bad, that their mom and dad are going to love them regardless, no conditions. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have limits. That doesn't mean we don't have consequences, but we're showing them love. I call it we can be compassionate and firm. They can coexist. Our brain's like, no, either all compassion or all firm, right? All love, but no consequence. I'm like, no, let's marry the two together and have a baby. And that's what connected parenting is. It's beautiful. And this is what creates trust. And this is where relationships are created that have real impact and influence, not fake influence that's contingent on force or correction or threats or bribes, or external things, real connection. That's when our children's hearts open up to us as a teenager and they're like, I want to hear, Mom, what you have to say about this. Please tell me. Or we all want this connection, right? We are built to live in communities, to have relationships. It's part of the human being's DNA, like to be part of a tribe, a family, a group, whatever you want to call it. And there is a difference between a connection based, like a healthy relationship, and just getting attention. In fact, there was this study done where they took, I don't know, maybe 18 months olds, and they put them in a car seat, a high chair of some kind. There's videos of it if you want to look it up. And they have the mom come in, and they strap the baby in, and they have the mom like come in and do all the normal, like, oh, you're so cute, and talking to them in their normal, loving, kind way. And then they have the mom turn around and come back and have a dead face, still present, still presently there, right? There's still, the eyes are fixed on the baby, but no reaction, right? And the babies flip out, because there is a difference between attention, being physically present, or even giving negative attention, like consequences and rewards or lectures, right? That's attention, but it's not connection. And the babies just showed so clearly that that's not enough. Being present. And then as parents, sometimes we accidentally give this negative thing, and that's not really what we want. But we want connection. And if we can't get it in a healthy way, we will get it in an unhealthy way. We want relationships so bad that, and the best example maybe is a baby in a high chair, right? We're feeding them, and we maybe need to go attend to something else. So we turn around and they throw all the food on the ground, and they're making this big mess. And then we turn around and they're like, haha, like that gets mom to come back to me. So even though it's negative attention, we're willing to do it, and it escalates as they get older, right? Where if we're not, and this goes back to what I was going to say, like when people do come to me and they're like, no, if I give my child loving connection when they're having off-track behavior, it's going to escalate the off-track behavior. The only way that's going to happen, the only scenario where that would actually occur, is if that's the only time you're showing up loving and kind and compassionate, is like giving them high speed connection when everything's going off, and then completely, or not giving equally high speed connection when things are going great. So we do have to have a balance, because we're so desperate for connection as humans. If that's the only way we can get connection is when things are going terrible, then we will start to get into the habit of getting our connection, getting our relationship feed hit, right? Whatever, when things are going not so great. So ideally, as parents, we need to be making sure we're giving loving and kind connection and time when things are going right and when things are not going as planned. Because if you're only showing up super loving, like I said, and responsive and kind when everything's going off track, you are going to find yourself in a bit of a mess, because we're so desperate for connection that we'll take toxic, unhealthy, icky feeling attention, thinking it's connection, if that's all we can get. Of course, this is subconsciously, we're not trying to do it, but it's just part of our makeup. So it's just good to know, like, we want to be seen. We want to be noticed. We want to feel like people are in our court cheering us on. And hopefully we can start to do the balancing in a way that they get so much of that when everything's going right, that we're not just giving them our undivided, focused attention when things are misbehaving. Because I don't know about you, I used to, if they were playing Legos nicely in the other room, in the playroom or whatever, I would like peek my head in quietly and then like tiptoe out, because I wouldn't want to, disrupt the flow that was going on right now, because I was really happy about that. No attention, right? In fact, ignoring, zero attention, maybe negative attention. But if as soon as they started fighting with each other, maybe they were throwing Legos or someone took someone else's toy, I was in there. It was like fiber speed, like I was just so present. My phone was put away. I was eye contact. I was energetically there, maybe not in a great way, but it was a lot of energy, right? Even though it was negative. And that's what we want to start to say, like, whoa, I was off balance. Because who wants dial up or dead energy, right? Like me tiptoeing out. Maybe I say something like, oh, good job, guys, like really quietly, and I tipped out. That's like dial up. It, like if we are comparing it to internet connection compared to fiber optic speed when everything's going off track. So we want to just be aware of that. That is really important to just consider. So here's the actual solution. We stop energizing off track behavior with our undivided fiber optic attention. We don't come like and have that be the only time our phone's aside and that we're so present, like, and we have, you can feel the energy, right? When it's, I can think back to off-track behavior time where my kids were fighting or no one was listening or the house was a mess. And I just like got to my wit's end and I just kind of exploded. The amount of energy that came out of me was huge. If I was on a scale of 1 to 10, it was like a 10. But when everybody was like quietly playing, I was not very energetically, and I wouldn't want to have the same negative energy, right? As it that, but I was like barely present or even like trying to do other things and kind of ignoring them all together. So The actual solution is to make a conscious decision to start to consider, and I would say to believe, that consequences and rewards, that's energizing the negative behavior, that's energizing the off track behavior rather, and that is not getting me where I want to go. That we've talked about the unseen maybe consequences, the costs of that, and to say like, ooh, I don't really think that's actually working, and I don't want to feed my child's like need for a relationship in a negative way like that. So what else can I do? And we have to really consciously step away and say like, I'm choosing not to do that anymore. Like I'm going to have to really be aware of that. And there's some practice, right? We can know that, and then we have to start practicing so we can really do that and replace it with other solutions. So setting limits simply and unenergetically is my new reaction to the off track behavior. Like my new reaction is no reaction. So connect method parenting does include limits and boundaries. However, it does not mean that they are imposed using punishments and consequences. There's a huge, big difference. One uses empathy and compassion. That's like its fuel, right? And the other is using control and fear and worry. So just because it's connection based doesn't mean it lacks limits or it lacks boundaries. But the execution of those limits and boundaries is so different. So I'm going to give you a little scenario. So this used to happen all of the time when my kids were little, and they would come to me right before dinner and they'd ask for a treat, right? And I'd say like, no, you can't have another treat today. You've already had 2 bowls of ice cream. We're done, not 3 bowls, right? So then the child would drop on the ground, flailing and kicking and yelling at the top of their lungs. I'm the meanest mom in the world. And her friend's mom lets her, eat as much ice cream as she wants, so much better than me. And how unfair I am being, and begging me to change my mind, and like repeat over and over and over again. This is the scenario, right? So how do we do this? What's the real like life situation? Like, how do we respond, right? Instead of saying like, stop it, you're being so, spoiled, or what, whatever we would typically like our brains want to say, right? Go into correction. Instead, let me give you an alternate idea. So me saying, oh, I know it's so hard not to get another bowl of ice cream. And maybe even I sit on the floor, maybe even I put a pillow between us if she's trying to hit me, or maybe I put a pillow on the floor for her head to lay on because she's like flailing around, right? Then let's say my child keeps screaming. This is pretty accurate. It's the way it used to be with me, yelling, kicking, hitting, not stopping, right? Especially when I was first trying to get the hang of this and my kids weren't used to me being able to blend compassion and firmness. They were used to me going to one side or the other. So I would sit there and they're flailing and the kids screaming still, and they're still telling me how horrible I am, seeing if I can get to my threshold. Because they kind of get conditioned to know like, mom can handle this for so long, and then there's a chance I might get this, or I'm just so frustrated about this, I don't care. I'm going to keep trying to change the situation, right? So they kind of are trying to test the waters too. So let's say the child's like, you're a horrible mom, and is getting more agitated, more frustrated. And I'm still sitting on the floor, my scenario I'm drawing for you. And I remind myself, this is totally normal. She's 5. Her brain is not developed, not consciously like thinking in a, more thinking about her thinking way. And our higher thinking is pretty minimal right now. She's just one emotion is driving her. So I stay calm. I remember myself, this is developmentally appropriate. She's learning what to do and she's frustrated. I don't maybe say very much, but I keep thinking she's doing the best she can right now. She can't self-regulate her emotion. That's why she needs me. She needs me to stay here with her. This is just evidence that something isn't working for her. And I stay warm and present. And I keep reminding myself of all of the things I've been practicing about, developmentally where she is and where I want to be, like what I want to be feeling. What's this bringing up for me? Like we have to go into our own triggers of like, why am I so bothered when she asks for another bowl of ice cream? Maybe there's something that's occurred for me in my life that makes this really triggery when someone asks over and over for something. I find that really bothersome. So I'm reminding myself of all of this work I've been doing, and the child's still flailing. Let's say it lasts for 30 minutes and she's like 30 minutes of her flailing before she calms down. And I've just sat with her the whole time. Now she's starting to breathe normally, and we hug and we finish the rest of the night. And I've set the limit and kept the boundary, no more treats. And my child was able to feel their emotions all the way through without me punishing them or yelling or, trying to bribe her with something. If she would just stop crying, she can have ice cream tomorrow. This is an example. It could have gone many different ways, but this is an example of a connective limit. And I wanted to illustrate that too, because sometimes our brains just have such a hard time conceptualizing what I'm talking about with connect method parenting that I get this all sounds really fabulous, but how do I actually do it in the moment when it's happening? So how do we stop making our kids, this is one of the things that goes through me, stop making the kids responsible for things they aren't ready to be responsible for. So my child at 5 wasn't capable of being responsible to set the limit and to understand, how to take my no answer to no more ice cream. So I get to help her see, like, how do we set that limit and we feel all the frustration, which is really big for a 5-year-old when they don't get their ice cream right, and let that happen. So I want to tell you another story that I think is really profound that helps illustrate this point so beautifully, that kind of turns our reasoning, our logical thinking that maybe we've inherited on its head. So there was a school that was struggling with a boy going to recess. He was making havoc on the playground, fighting, hitting, breaking all of the rules. The teachers had told him over and over again, hey, here's the rules of recess. Here's how we conduct ourselves. And if you're, all the things, right? Here's what will happen if you don't do it, blah, blah, blah. They'd gone into all, nothing had helped. He just he would agree to it. Then he'd go and he'd completely cause havoc. And they were trying to problem solve that. And this brilliant psychologist who has just devoted his life to developmental psychology, Dr. Gordon Neufeld, who I just credit to, and it's so honored because he has really devoted his professional career to studying this. He was brought in as the expert to give them advice. And he said, stop sending him to recess. He's not ready. And the teachers were like, what? And they're like, it's not a punishment. He's just showing you clear as day that every day when you send him to recess and he can't control his emotions and he can't control his body and he can't follow instructions and he can't set his own limits, he's clearly not ready to be put in that situation. He's incapable of being successful at recess. So why don't you put him in a situation that he can be successful at? Not because it's going to teach him a lesson, not because he's in trouble, not because something's wrong with him, just because let's have him have a chance to be successful. And so they came up with this huge plan where he was going to be allowed to stay with a teacher during recess and be her helper. And it was this huge, beautiful thing that they created for him. It wasn't negative. It was compassionate and firm. They were clear about what his parameters were developmentally and what he was going to be able to do so that they could have him start to develop these skills in a setting where he could develop them. He wasn't able to develop them on the playground. He wasn't ready. Even though the other kids his age were ready, he wasn't ready. So let's bring him somewhere where he's ready. And let's give him the opportunity in a more controlled, constrained environment where he can start learning those things to learn to set his own limits. So we have to be a compassionate leader who sets our kids up for success. Our kids need us to lead. They need us to be thinking about these things because they're not able to. And when we're creating these environments for them to be successful, when we're allowing them to be children, where they're having this emotional experience and we know how to handle that, we know how to guide them, we know how to let them have their emotions or to have their frustrations or to have their meltdowns or to talk back to us or whatever it is, and we can be the more mature party, then they get to rest and trust in us. And that also creates more of that relationship where they choose us because they know we believe in them. So we want to be parents for them because they can't figure out how to do things for themselves. If they didn't need us, they could regulate it all. They wouldn't need us, right? So especially when they're young, they're one emotion drivers before the prefrontal cortex, which is that front part of our brain that is so amazing. And we're so grateful for it. It lets us think about our thinking. It lets us think logically and rationally about so many things. It comes on at about 7 at the best, 7 to 10, not fully developed for women till 25, men till 30. So when they're young, they're just like one big emotion and they're not able to use logic or reason. So that is huge for us to actually be able to get in this mindset of allowing our kids to have their childhood experience and for us to be able to be in a mindset where we can not energize or try to use consequences or rewards to control them, but to rather help guide them and navigate them. So the last thing is to start to allow for big emotions. This is nothing that I was ever taught. I think it's being taught more now, just the importance of emotions. I really see in the research coming through that emotions are the engine to maturation. They're the thing that grows us up, feeling our emotions, knowing how to regulate our emotions, being able to not be controlled by our emotions. It's like one of the most important skills that allow us to grow and develop. So our kids don't want to hit or yell or throw. It's just something that happens when they don't get their way, when their siblings haven't shared their toy with them, when we ask them to do something like pick up their room and they really don't want to, when a friend has said something mean to them at school, or maybe they're upset because they didn't do well on a test today and now they're home. And like one of these things happens, or one of many things happens. These are just some examples. And their emotions get totally spiked and they stop thinking. and they feel so much frustration, it overwhelms them. And if they are older, maybe they're a teenager and their prefrontal cortex is coming online, if we feel enough emotion, that prefrontal cortex goes offline. Or if they're young, they don't even have it. It's just not even there, right? And they're overwhelmed with their emotions. And if this happens, they aren't able to feel or regulate the frustration in a healthy way. It ends up getting expressed as hitting or yelling or throwing things or saying things, right? And adults get emotionally charged like this too. We just don't usually hit, throw, or yell because we have been, we know the parameters of what's civilized. But when our kids hit, yell, throw, cry, slip, they make mistakes. And we accidentally slip into correction, lecturing, blaming, shaming by saying things like, you know better. Why did you do this? We talked about this. What's wrong with you? You're grounded. We're pouring gasoline on the fire. So they're already frustrated about something. And we unintentionally, right, just because we think these are the tools to use, create more frustration instead of decreasing when we say, like, stop feeling that way. Why are you doing that? What I am challenging us to do or opening our minds to doing is what we do need to do is to keep our kids to feel safe. But we can't do that with the lectures and the correction and the blame. So what if we came with compassion and empathy, right? We're blending these two together to the situation instead of frustration or upset ourselves. Oh, I can see that you're really frustrated about your sister taking your toy. It's hard. I can see that's really hard for you, right? And we come with neutrality instead of pointing out who's wrong. That could start to change everything. And we still can create a framework to be firm and set a limit as well, but not from a place of something is wrong and I've got to fix this versus like, oh, they're really struggling right now. What would best serve them? This is what we do in Connect Method Parenting. We learn how to deal with these big emotions and to change the way we navigate upsetting situations. It's absolutely amazing. So some of the skills, and I'm not going to be able to go into all of these because we're just about at our hour right now, but some of the skills that kind of go along with what I've been talking about so that we don't have to just rely on consequences and rewards is we start understanding our personal triggers. What's causing me to get so upset when the house is a mess, when the dishes aren't done, when my child talks back to me, whatever it is, right? What are my triggers? Why am I getting so triggered? Because our emotional state is very, very important. Oftentimes we're like, I'm frustrated because of them. Well, let's just go like, I'm frustrated because I have a belief, a thought. I'm feeling something because they're doing that. So I need to understand what's going on for me so that I can show up in a calm, connected way and offer that to them. Another skill that will help us as we start to learn alternatives to consequences and rewards is that behavior is information, nothing more. Behavior is simply an indicator of what's going on inside your child or inside of us for that matter. If they're having an emotional outburst, it's because something is frustrating them. They're up against something that's not working for them. So we can start to remember that. We can start to see what I call connective vision, seeing beyond the behavior. It's linked to what I was just saying, but we really get our minds trained to say, like, this is different than what I'm thinking. Like, it's not that they're being difficult or defiant or rude or sassy or demanding. It's something else, right? So we become like connective vision, like we put on new glasses, right? And I love thinking about the skill of nice try energy, where we don't get offended when our kids do something. I used to get so offended. I felt like personally hurt when they would say something or do something. I felt like, how could they not respect me? Know all the things I'm doing. How come they're doing that? So we start to not be offended and realize what they're doing and saying has nothing to do with me. Even if they're saying words that are hurtful to me, that my brain thinks are hurtful, it just has to do with something going on inside of them. So we take our power back and we start to realize that situations are neutral. And another skill is we learn to, like, I love your face energy, where we just start to really believe in everyone's inherent worthiness and lovability. Powerful. It's huge. I wish I could explain all of it right now. But we start to unpack and learn that skill, and we see and hear them profoundly, like deep listening. I like to say, if we tell them something, they'll forget, but if we listen, they'll remember. And goes back to that, building that relationship where they choose us. They choose us to be their confidant. They choose us to be the person they go to for guidance as they get older, or as a small child is not thinking that, logically or that, that deeply, but they choose us because they know that we're a safe person for them. No more shitting on ourselves. That's where we think I should have done this different or they should have done this different. No more shitting on our kids. We start to just accept things as they are and have more love and peace in our life and learn. We actually learn so much better. Did you guys know this? I didn't know this. Like, blew my mind when I first realized is that being gentle and more peaceful and loving actually creates more progress, more growth than beating ourselves up. Mind blowing. So it's really tricky for ourselves to be loving and kind and gentle and compassionate to ourselves, but we've got to learn how to do that. We pause, breathe, and love in a moment instead of like explode. So something happens, we feel the trigger, we learn to pause, we learn to breathe, we learn to love them, we learn to love us no matter where we are. And it allows us to navigate situations and be a guide so that we can set them up for success versus, be the fixer. Which leads into the next skill is like the love it versus fix it energy, where we really believe that, well, let me explain. Fix it energy happens when we believe we need to change a person or a situation in front of us to make us feel better. Love it energy starts to look like us believing and fully accepting that person or that situation in front of us exactly as they are. And that is exactly what's supposed to be happening. Like, this is teaching me something. This is helping me see something about my child or see something about me. And we love it and we accept it and we learn and we pivot and we grow. Maybe we still set boundaries, but we are able to navigate it in such a beautiful, more loving, compassionate way. And I promise love it energy works better every single time, way better than fix it energy. A huge one we've talked about is this like welcoming all emotions, and emotions are beautiful, all of them, the happy, the sad, the all gamut. We learn to really, and as we learn that, we navigate our ability, or we increase our ability to not energize off track behavior and really redefining success. This is huge. We think that typically in society, like success means my kids are behaving and they're civilized and they're making good choices and they're never yelling and they're never talking back. And we have to like redefine all of that. How about success as our children is fulfilling their potential, not because they become yes man, not because they're always obedient, but because they learn how to be self-confident. They learn to be emotionally mature. They learn to be authentic to themselves and to be in touch with their intuition and to follow their heart. And that is what we're going for when we start to, and what we can create for ourselves when we redefine what success looks like as a parent. It allows us to shift from correction and worry and fear to connection, trust, and peace. And this is the journey we take when we commit to Connect Method parenting. So I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. So I just could talk about this all day, as you can see. So here's the results we create when we commit to Connect Method parenting. We are connected to our kids and confident in our parenting. Nothing shakes us because we've redefined and we're just, it's just beautiful because we're connected. We set limits from peace and compassion and empathy, not frustration. We understand what's really going on with our child. This is huge because it's tricky sometimes to look past the behavior. So we do that. That's created for us. We trust the relationship, deep, meaningful relationship, and we create that. We see and hear our kiddos in a totally new way. We understand what success is for us. We understand what success is for our kids, not perfectly behaved kids necessarily, but kids who fulfill their potential and are feeling seen and heard. And we welcome our kids into our presence. We welcome all the emotions, and our kids want to start listening to us so much better. And we don't feel the need to yell anymore. We see past that. So that is what we start to create for ourselves when we commit to the journey of Connect Method parenting. So what does that look like for you today? What is your assignment today so that you can take a step in that direction, right? And if you're already in that direction, I know there's some tribe members on here, more like just keep going on it, right? It's a practice. It's kind of a journey versus a destination. We're going on it and we're learning and we're growing and we're getting ready for whatever might come up. Okay, what I'm going to have you do today is I'm going to have you lean in, what I call lean in, listen, and love. Okay, so when something happens, your child's doing something that you aren't super happy about, I want you to lean in, get close, make eye contact, put your phone down, be fully present. Don't say something from across the room. This is huge. If you do nothing else but lean in and like get present and look at their eyes and get physically close to them before you say anything or do anything, unless like there's safety issues involved, you're going to have a really cool experience. Put the phone down and be fully present with good energy, but as present energetically as you would if something really, like as you would respond to like a big problem, how you're just like fully, like you're not thinking about the laundry or like you're 100% fully present. Bring that same fully present in a good, positive way, in a connective way. And I believe in this child, like nothing's gone terribly wrong. I can figure this out kind of energy instead of everything's gone wrong, but the same energetic presence. So you're going to lean in, you're going to listen, not just with your ears. Your kids may not know what's going on, especially if they're young, but really all of us, as soon as we get emotionally charged, our logical higher thinking goes offline. We're not really aware of what really like to dissect the problem in the moment. It's just like, we're just emotionally there, right? Where it's just like, this is happening. So we don't need to question. We're not listening like, hey, what happened? Tell me we're just like listening as far as like observing is probably even a better word. Like we're observing our kids. We're pausing, we're engaging our senses, our sense of sight, and even maybe smell, our hearing, right? We're engaging our touch, like being present and truly listening, and we're breathing. And then we're going to learn, we're going to let what we've gathered from our senses, we're going to let it sink in. We're going to try to understand what happened. We're going to try to think about what's going on for our child. And we're going to just take a minute. We're going to like pause. So we're going to lean in, listen, and learn when something goes off track today. And then you're going to, if you need to, and this is not always necessary, you're going to set a limit if you need to. So I like to think of it as if you're the coach on a soccer field of like 5-year-olds. And when they're like 3 or 5, they don't know the rules of soccer. They might be hitting the ball into the wrong goal for the wrong team. Like they don't know that they can't use their hands. They're like, so the coach is just there. I remember watching my kids and the coach is saying like, oh, don't do this, don't do that. Like in a kind way, like not frustrated, not like you should know this. I can't believe they're picking up the ball. I can't believe they ran to the wrong side. They're just like, oh, that's not our goal. That's our goal. Can't use your hands, can't push over people, right? They're just explaining it. So I want you to think about as you're setting a limit, you're just explaining the rules again. You're saying it and you're saying it in a direct way and you're saying it very succinctly. I recommend 5 to 7 words. We can't hit. No throwing the toys. I can't let you do that. We don't jump on the couch, right? It's just super simple. We're just stating the rules like a soccer coach would. And we're coming with compassion and empathy, not in a negatively charged way, right? But just in like, even just a calm way, as present, but like a peaceful, calm, grounded way. And it's going to be very illuminating for you to try to experience it, to see what happens. Now, no matter what happens, it's a success just to be thinking about this as a new way to interact with your kids. Whether you do it perfectly or not, that doesn't even matter. It's just the process and the practice of beginning to do it. So we're leaning in, listening, and learning before we set the limit. So this is the process. We're looking at them in the eyes. I like to say, like, we want to like see if they're actually aware of us before we start shouting things from the other room. And we can set the limit, but succinctly, right? And calmly. And then we're not going to just let them run wild. We're going to say it like, hey, I can't let you jump on the couch. And maybe we just sit with them, or maybe we take them off the couch, or maybe we say, I can't let you sit on the couch. Then we take them into the kitchen with us. I want you to come sit with me, but we're not doing it in a punitive way. Do you see how it's totally fueled by compassion and empathy? We're setting the limit because they can't. We think about that boy on the playground. He wasn't able to do that on his own. So how can I set him up for success, or your daughter up for success, right? And I want to read you something that came up in one of my groups with a gal who's been working with me for a while. And she says, I have a daughter who's diagnosed with ADHD and ODD. Counseling didn't help much for us long term. Andy Martineau has been the ticket. She has completely changed my paradigm about discipline and connection. A few months later, after her Connect method, my daughter is almost on time for school, doing her homework cheerfully, and even saying sorry after she loses her temper. She has even done her chores 7 out of 8 weeks. Our relationship has gone from near zero to the best it's ever been. My whole concept of discipline is different. And what's super awesome is I don't have to keep stupid reward charts, checklists anymore, just connection, connection, connection. Then she added this little thing after. She says, and she used to hate herself too, but that's changing a lot. And I can see her start to blossom. So I read that to show you that it's possible, that other moms are doing it, that connection is the best fuel. It can do what correction never could. So as we step into this and dip our toe into it, or if you're one of my members and you're here and you want to start swimming with it, you're already swimming with it, and we're just going to keep going. It's a process, it's a practice, and it continues to get better and better the more we practice at it. We get more proficient. So that is your assignment for today. I'm so excited to hear how it goes. And let me just make sure if there's any questions. See where the Q&A is. I haven't been looking at it. Oh, there are some questions. I will take a minute and go through the questions really quickly. Jessica says that makes sense, but what do you do if while setting a limit and allowing them to feel the things they disrespect you by throwing something? So this is where, and I hope that kind of answered your question at the end. You would set the limit. If they're dangerous, if they're throwing things, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's not safe, then you would need to put them in a space, or maybe even put them in their room and have them be safe. And I go more into how to do that in a connective way. But the most important thing is safety for sure. Set the limit and try to just remember that this is their experience. And so letting them have that being firm and compassionate as they're doing their, like having their different emotional experiences, but you don't have to just let them, like, we're not being passive, right? We're saying, oh, I can't let you talk to me like that. Oh, we don't talk like that. And we're trying to realize that what they're saying is evidence of something going on inside of themselves. And when we start to turn it like that, our nervous system for us starts to go down. It's not that we've done anything wrong. It's not that anything's wrong with our child. Like, how do I continue to just help them in this situation? Okay. Nathan, are there any other dads listening? Yes, there's other dads. There's other dads. Yeah, moms. I tend to say moms, but dads I love working with both, because really a lot of moms and dads, to get on the same team, they want that both things. So Brenna, what would you recommend for parents who have a spouse who isn't willing? Here's what I'd recommend. I worked with lots of moms in this situation, and I would just say, and this was not that my husband was antagonistic towards it, but was just doing his own thing and I was doing my own thing. And it was me setting the example first and just deciding he's going to do it however he's going to do it, and I'm going to do it my way. And it started that way before he started getting curious, and it helped. I can't guarantee that they'll always be like, yeah, teach me everything you know, and I want to do what you want to do. But all we can really start with is ourselves. So that's where we start. And a lot of the times other people get curious and interested. Okay, Catherine, how does this work when I'm in the midst of making dinner? The child is hungry. It's almost time for dinner. And if I sit down with the child for 30 minutes, the child will continue to get more and more hungry. Dinner needs to be made. I had a similar situation and I offer other options. The kids continue tantrum. Yeah, here's the thing. This happens. And I had 6 kids. So like, it wasn't like I always had the privilege, the opportunity, the time, the space to sit down for 30 minutes and just put everything else on hold. But what we can do is, for us, I use the word energetically because or emotionally, how am I feeling about the tantrum or the meltdown? If I can't sit with them because I've got to go do dinner, or maybe another child, for me, oftentimes was another baby needed me and I couldn't just like ignore them, I would just let them know like, hey, I have to go take care of dinner, but you are welcome to tantrum. If you don't want them to tantrum in the same room as you, I recommend letting them be with you if possible. But if it's just too disruptive, say if you have to put them in another room, hey, I'm going to have you go in this room, make sure they know like, this isn't because you're in trouble, or it's not because I can't handle you. It's just because it's just, someone else is doing their homework and you need to be in this room or whatever. So we want to just continue to let them know like, nothing's wrong with you. I'm here for you. I'm not leaving you. I will be back. And we put the emphasis on like, I'll be back. So like, hey, I know you're really upset about this. I've got to go check on dinner. I'll be back in a minute to check on you again, or I'll be gone for 20 minutes, but I'll be back. And when I come back, we could talk about this, but like, I love you. I'm here for you. We just continue to help them realize, I don't think anything's wrong. I get it. You're totally welcome to be upset. I can't be with you, but it's not because I'm mad at you or because I can't handle you. It's just because I've got other things to do. I will be back. We put that connection on the emphasis on the next connection. I hope that helped. Okay. Thank you guys. The rest of it's just like, you're so welcome. I'm so glad that you are here and that we were able to talk through this. Go have so much fun thinking about how you're going to respond when there's off-track behavior with lean in, listen and learn, and setting that limit in a connective way that's fueled by compassion and empathy, and how we're really going to start to question and step away from this idea that consequences and rewards are getting us what we want. They aren't. They come at a steep cost. So let's separate ourselves from them. So practice with that today. I'm sure you're going to have lots of questions. I'm sure you're going to have successes or maybe half successes or fail, like whatever happens, let us know how it goes. And I will for sure see you back here tomorrow. I can't wait to talk about it more. We're going to dive into the second vital connection. So we will talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, guys.
If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, come check out League, my Connect Method parenting coaching program, where we take this material and we apply it using my proven formula. Head over to cmp.works/join.